Look, there's no way getting around it. We all age, but it's optional whether that aging is rapid or very slow and, with a loss of function. And you're never going to understand that until you do start to dedicate some time to resistance training.
Because to age well, we need to continue moving.
100%. When you have more access to this awareness, you're able to activate the muscle far better. What is the perfect posture? The perfect posture is movement. I would just say that if anyone's trying to get pregnant or they're trying to increase their DHA, use a very good fish oil supplement.
To basically activate the mind-muscle connection.
Tension over weight. Weights are obviously important to build up over time if you want to build strength, but
people don't realize that when you move, you produce synovial fluid.
100%.
And that is the oil in the joints. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Eat, Burn, Sleep podcast. Today we're going to be talking about muscle, about strength, about mobility, about supplements with a very experienced personal trainer who's here with me, Tim Blakey, who comes from New Zealand. He trained as a physiotherapist in his 20s in New Zealand. He's been in London for many years. We met at a bar quite a few years ago. On a terrace, I was with friends and I could drink again thanks to the Eat, Burn, Sleep lifestyle. And actually we met before I started doing Eat, Burn, Sleep.
Yeah. So it's been a while. Yeah.
And so Tim has developed this amazing method called Prime Body. He's helped dozens of people in London change their body composition, lose weight, put muscle on, reach optimal health. He has a way of looking at things which is quite analytical and scientific, so he can help people really calibrate, their food intake, their protein intake, their water intake, which supplements they're taking. So I thought I'd bring him over and into the podcast to discuss all of this and pick his brains today. Tim, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
There's so many questions I want to ask you, but I'm going to start with a little bit of a selfish one. I'm a woman. I'm 47 years old. I have 2 children, as you know. Like most women my age, I'm busy with a million things. We generally have kids, we have elderly parents, we have our jobs, we have our partners, we have our social life. And it feels that health becomes slightly more challenging. And although I am in this field, and I look into this all day, every day, I can see the changes in my body today versus when I was 20. And I wanted to know what you observe in women when they're over the age of 40 and how you help them improve their body composition, but more importantly, retain the results over time.
Well, look, there's no way getting around it. We all age, but it's optional whether that aging is rapid or very slow and, with a loss of function. You've probably heard it many times before, but, resistance training is the most important thing we can be doing, particularly around that age, because after the age of 30, both men and women will lose between 3 and 5% of muscle mass every decade, and that actually increases over the age of 50. So if you haven't already spent the first few decades of your life, maybe not the first decade, but the second, third, and fourth, building muscle, it's a really important time to start building and retaining muscle, okay? Because that's what's going to carry you on into your elder years and also stay functional, add life to your years, not just years to your life. Yeah. So resistance training, obviously the diet comes into that, and I totally get it. Busy, we lead busy lives. Health can fall by the wayside, but it's very cliche, but if you don't make room for health, you're going to be making room for illness a lot sooner. And I think that's a really powerful quote. So, people think, I don't have time to go to the gym 5 times a week and do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't have to be 5 times. Anyone can start wherever they're at, even if it's 2 20, 30-minute workouts from home a week. Just start. That's the most important thing you can do for bone density, building that muscle, and, support you in every asset of your life, improve your sleep, everything.
Yeah. So when, many people who sign up to my platform are people who are a bit in the state where I used to be. So now I'm able to lift weights and all of that. But for many years, although I loved doing that, whenever I did it, the inflammatory response of my body was too much. So would you what would you advise for these people to do? To start with like body weight exercises?
Yeah, and emphasize mobility. So that's one of the sort of the ethos of my business, Prime Body, is have a massive emphasis on mobility before a session. A lot of people think that static stretching is the way for us to lengthen muscles and move better. It's not. Static stretching, I'm not against static stretching and certainly different forms of yoga, but actually mobility before lifting weights is far better. Now, mobility is essentially stretching, but with movement. So you're taking your muscles and your joints through their full range of motion. And it's a really important way to prime your muscles, prime your joints, so that you don't get this huge amount of inflammation afterwards. A little bit of muscle soreness and inflammation from a workout is normal. Obviously, in your case, if you know you're going to rebound quite extreme, then you start with a much lower dose. As you said, you can do just body weight exercises, but even with body weight exercises, I would use mobility before you do those body weight exercises. And mobility is just a couple of movements, which I borrow from yoga, like a sun salutation, going through, moving the knees, the hips, the back through the full range of motion. And it does improve this other thing called proprioception. Now, proprioception is our sort of map inside our brain of knowing where our limbs and stuff are. Now, if you're going through your full range of motion before you work out, you're a little bit more aware where your limbs are, how much stretch your muscles have, and that way you're able to feel them and train them properly.
Yeah, so you basically activate the mind-muscle connection through that.
Exactly. Yeah. Mine, and even foam rolling, which people think is a waste of time, but foam rolling doesn't actually release anything straight away. What it does is it's that feedback mechanism of mind-muscle. It's making you aware of different areas, much like the mobility. And you're getting this feedback, so your brain's suddenly aware of where your muscles, where your joints, where your limbs are in space. And when you have more access to this awareness, you're able to activate the muscle far better. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's game changer. Once people can understand that mind-muscle connection and understanding tension in a muscle, tension over weight. Weights are obviously important to build up over time if you want to build strength, but just understanding tension in a muscle is very key for people to do. And you're never going to understand that until you do start to dedicate some time to resistance training.
Yes, it's so interesting because it is true that doing a workout without thinking of your muscle, you can literally see that you're not really getting results.
You go on autopilot, right?
Yeah.
But you can train that autopilot. So I've been training obviously for many, many years. I do like my gym time every day because I do go into autopilot, but my autopilot knows I'm aware. Like it's almost like a meditation for me. But I know what you mean. If you see people that haven't really sort of put in the practice or aren't really aware, you can see them just going through the motion in the gym and they're not paying attention, or they don't have that map, that circuit working just yet. It is like a circuit. One of my favorite images to demonstrate this is if you imagine you're standing in a field with long grass and you see a house in the distance. First time you walk from where you are to that house, it's going to take a while through that heavy grass. If you keep walking from that point to the house back and forth, what happens? You get this grass gets trampled down and you get this nice smooth line from where you are to the house. Think of that as your nerve to your muscle. So the more times you use that, the better that pathway is.
Fantastic. That's a great analogy.
I'll show you the image. I'll send it to you. Yeah.
That is a great analogy. But it is true that the mind-muscle connection, I've experienced it for myself, does so much. And that's why actually I'm not a fan of exercise classes, because it's much harder to be mindful.
Yeah, totally. If you're just listening and they're changing position all the time and you're trying to look at these other people, no, you need to be
focused.
Yeah.
So in your experience, what kind of supplements have helped all the people you train? So would you give different supplements to men, women, for body recomposition mainly? Yeah.
Yes, I would, but I certainly wouldn't give them for the reason of body composition. Like it's just not, look, supplements are like a tool, but there's nothing that's going to do the hard work for you. In fact, I can talk a little bit about creatine, which I know we've chatted about before in the past. But all these supplements help your body to do certain things, but they don't do it alone, if that makes sense. Yeah. So there's no. People have been sort of trying to sell fat burners and things to improve body composition for a long amount of time. The best thing you can do is put your body in the best hormonal, and balanced state that it is. And then the work that you do and the care that you put into your nutrition, that's what's then going to improve your body composition. There's no fast tracks. If you want sort of fast tracks or cheat codes, you're then looking at things like GLPs. And I don't know what your opinion is on those. I realize they're very useful for people that are significantly overweight, and I get that. But it's pretty concerning that a lot of young people who are barely overweight are using them. That's I think the fear, but supplements aren't like that. Supplements aren't going to have that sort of effect. You can, as I said, take the right supplements to put your body in the best position that you can. Now, to answer the second part of that, men and women, yes, slightly different supplements that I would recommend, but the gold standard for both sexes, I say, is zinc. Zinc slightly more important for men, but for hormonal health for men. But zinc is so important for our immune system and our recovery. Good quality zinc as well. Magnesium is superb for your recovery. Also very good for sleep. So anyone that's struggling with their sleep, I think biglycinate is the best type of magnesium. You have that before sleep can really be helpful. So magnesium, zinc are two must-haves. Even ahead of those, I would put vitamin D, because we're all deficient in that in the winter, particularly in the UK. So everyone should be supplementing with vitamin D, in my opinion. Taking it with K2 as well helps to utilize it better, and that's actually great for bone density as well. Like vitamin D is massive for that. So if we're talking again, sort of women over the age of 35 and 40 and onwards, I think that's one of the most important. And fish oils. Fish oils are my other big one that I think everyone needs to have. If we were all eating as much fish as we used to ancestrally, I think it would be fine, but none of us do. And a high-quality fish oil, omega-3s aren't just good for your health, so good for your heart health. It's brain health, mood, as well as even some of your sex hormones. The sex hormones, we think of zinc, as I mentioned before, vitamin D, but the studies actually showing that fish oil can benefit your sex hormones as well. Getting all that stuff balanced is how we can then improve body composition.
I love that you're mentioning this, because when many years ago, when I wanted to have children, I noticed that if I was above 62 kilos, I would get pregnant, but under 62 kilos, I would not get pregnant.
Wow.
And I wanted to understand. I was like, but hold on. Japanese women are very skinny and they get pregnant. How come? So I went down a rabbit hole of research.
It was fish oils.
Or because they consume so much fish.
Yeah.
And that DHA is stored in our fat stores because they have a higher proportion of that type of fish oil of DHA, which is good for the baby's brain development and eye development. Yeah. They need less fat on their bodies to be fertile.
Yeah, I have actually heard that theory before. That's quite interesting. Yeah, that the fact that the mother's body will know when it has enough DHA stores. That's so important. That's such a good insight.
So I take DHA for weight loss purposes.
Well, technically, yeah, exactly. But that's such a good point. I'd forgotten about that. That's I think that's very useful for many women because especially pregnancy seems to be getting harder and harder for many people as we move through this crazy world,
Yeah, so and DHA actually, I was coaching. I coach a few number of people, complex cases on one-on-one. The majority of my clients are on the platform. And I had a lady who came to me who had a rather aggressive breast tumor. And I found some research showing that for the type of tumor she had, DHA was really beneficial.
Interesting.
So for, as you were saying, hormonal health, but also cancer.
Yep.
Anyway, anti-inflammation helps.
Yeah, and it's
lower cancer.
And fish oils are anti-inflammatory, as you say. I think the biggest concern is I don't know whether it's certainly not a myth, but I think it's sort of overplayed a lot, and that's that women shouldn't eat fish when they're pregnant because there's a risk of different bacteria or different illnesses you can get from fish. And I think that's what causes women to eat less fish. Now, obviously, the Japanese didn't listen to this advice and did very well. So I would just say that if anyone's trying to get pregnant or they're trying to increase their DHA, use a very good fish oil supplement. And the best ones are, they have a high proportion of DHA and EPA per capsule, because if you go to some of the stores out there, you'll get ones that have only 30% active ingredients, so they're rubbish. So get one that's sort of above 75% DHA and EPA, and also make sure it's a member of the International Fish Oil Association. So believe it or not, there's such a thing, and that's a really key thing because it means it's independently tested. And if you can have if you know you've got really good quality fish oils, then there's no risk of having those when you're pregnant. Yeah.
Absolutely. So all the supplements you mentioned are indeed the supplements that are important for overall health. So vitamin D, mental health, immune system health, lowering inflammation, powerful anti-cancer, and great for autoimmunity.
Yeah.
Fish oil, same thing. Our diets are too rich in omega-6 and too poor in omega-3.
Yeah.
Zinc, super essential, important as well for thyroid health and
That's
metabolism.
Right. Yeah.
What else did you mention? Magnesium, most people are deficient.
Yeah. So a funny story, I actually stopped taking it because magnesium is one of these ones that's been around for so long, and we just kind of think, oh, well, whatever. I used to take it, and I stopped taking it for years, and I started taking a new one that a brand that put out, and it was transformational in terms of my sleep. And I was like, why have I not spent the last 3 years? I'm pretty good with everything else. And I just stopped taking magnesium. And it is really important. It's one of the most useful or performs the most actions in our body. Yet so many of us are deficient and we don't supplement.
Let me tell you a funny story. So I started wearing the Whoop.
Yeah.
And so does my partner. He has terrible sleep issues. Okay. And when I met him early on, he said to me, I can't sleep, and insomniac. And, you don't want to coach your partner. That's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah.
But I just put it out there. I was like, have you tried magnesium? It doesn't work. Okay. So I backed off. And I brought my magnesium. And he saw me take it in the evening. He said to me, what are you doing? I said, I'm taking magnesium. Would you like some? He took it, slept well. Then we got the Whoop, and literally his stress sleep is here. When he forgets to take his magnesium, he'll remember, he'll go back down in the kitchen, take it, and afterwards the stress sleep is super low.
Yeah.
Literally, we measure it from the moment he takes it. And the reason why he's so sensitive to it compared to me, he has a high-stress job. And actually, when we're stressed, we go through our stores of
100%.
vitamin B, magnesium much faster.
Burn through everything, as well as zinc. Yeah, the stress. Also, we could talk about DHEA, and that competes also with our cortisol. So that's another thing that we can get deficient with high stress. On that note, there's also the reishi he should try. If the magnesium works, there's reishi as well as. So my wife was having struggles with her sleep as well. Not that bad, but enough that she took the magnesium and it did help. She also started taking the ashwagandha regularly. Have you tried ashwagandha? I'm
just careful with it because when you take it for a long time,
you have to cycle it. Yes, exactly. Yes. But there's a bit of a common misconception too. People think it's like this calming sleep supplement. It's not. It's it regulates your stress. It's a auto-regulator. So if you take it in the morning, it's not going to send you to sleep. Helps you regulate your stress levels. But you're totally right. You need to cycle it, but can be very useful for sleep for many that have that high stress level.
Absolutely.
You said all the ones that I mentioned, the supplements are, for our optimal health, and that's what I was trying to say. There's no cheat code. If you want supplements for optimizing body composition, it's the same ones. It's the same ones to optimize your health because our bodies want to be in optimal health. And obviously we can then talk about carrying excess body weight, and that's important to get down as well. But if you put your body in the best state with the health optimizing supplements, then your body composition will follow suit, provided you give it the stimulus of training. The only other supplement I would add is obviously creatine. And there's a lot of confusion about creatine, about what it actually does. Last year was such a big year for creatine. You couldn't look anywhere online without seeing it, right? So obviously it started in the bodybuilding community, decades ago. And I read something recently which was quite probably true. And that is that if creatine wasn't discovered then and it was discovered now, it's such a good supplement and well studied that drug companies would probably turn it into a drug and charge us a lot more for it. So we're actually lucky that it's a supplement and it's as clean and you can get really good quality creatine. But a lot of people, obviously, coming from bodybuilder circles, are worried that it's this thing that suddenly bulks us up. It doesn't do that. Yeah. Creatine does not add muscle automatically, like all supplements we said before. It requires you to put the effort in. So I'll try and break this down the easiest way. Is think about creatine or your phosphocreatine source as being this battery booster for your main energy system. So our muscles, our energy currency is ATP. Okay, that's what our muscles use to produce energy. And taking your phosphocreatine stores that you have in your body, that helps to recycle or reboot and recharge that ATP. And you have 3 phases of energy, if you like. So you've got the initial phosphocreatine store. Now, this is for explosive movement, very rapid, which lasts, say, roughly 0 to 10 seconds. So if you're in the gym and you've got your phosphocreatine stores as high as possible because you've been taking creatine, you're going to have a little bit more endurance for that initial power, which, power, like maybe it's a couple more reps. That might be all that it is. You then move on to your next energy system is your blood sugar, your sugar in your cells, your glycogen that's stored in your muscle cells. That's what you use. After about 40 seconds, then we switch into a more aerobic dominant. And there's a really interesting experiment, which just about anyone can do regardless of their activity level. Don't injure yourself, but run flat out at full pace as fast as you can for a minute. What you'll notice is whatever your speed is, you'll notice the first drop off of speed is about 10 seconds. And that's where your phosphocreatine stores have run out. Now, you're never only running on one source, but that's when there's the big drop-off. It will continue working, but to a slower degree. Your next drop-off of speed, you're still sprinting as fast as you can. From that 10 seconds to about 40 seconds is when you're using up your muscle glycogen. Mm-hmm. And then, again, you can see this at the Olympics is a great one to watch because you can see these 400-meter runners, and you see at 40 seconds, there's suddenly another drop-off. And that's where you start to rely more on your aerobic system.
Interesting.
So remember those 3 different phases. Taking creatine, all that does is it bolsters and reinforces that first energy system. So it's not going to suddenly make you bulky. It's going to potentially improve your strength, which will help you increase muscle mass and bone density. But you still have to put the effort in. But creatine makes that a little bit easier. The reason I think people get confused about the suddenly adding muscle is what it does do is it helps pull fluid into your cells. Now, it hydrates your muscle cells. If we're going to have fluid in us, the best place for it to be is in our muscles. Yeah. It's actually the best place. So if people, this sounds like tough love, but if you're worried that it's bulking you up, actually that's body fat, that's adipose tissue that you need to lose if you're worrying about looking bulky. Because trust me, muscle is smooth. If we can talk about things like cellulite, you want to keep, as little fat, and actually bolstering the muscle is what's good, is the least invasive way to attack that cellulite, right? Because you're making the muscle very, very smooth. And the reason I mentioned cellulite is I know it's something that does affect women a lot more than men, and I think it's an interesting thing to mention to encourage them to take creatine, okay? Because it's so good at pumping up your muscle, and again, not to a massive degree, but it's pulling that fluid into your muscle so that it stays well hydrated.
Yeah.
And again, you're not going to suddenly look in the mirror one day and be too bulky. If that happens, I can guarantee that it's not muscle. And this is another thing that I always say is that women or men that are not wanting to put on too much muscle, they should all train until they have too much muscle, because anyone who wants to put on more muscle will tell you that all you have to do is stop training for 2 days before it goes away. So train until you feel like you're too bulky, take a few days off, and you'll be at your perfect body composition.
Thank you for listening so far. We'll be continuing this conversation in part 2, so make sure you're subscribed to the Eat, Burn, Sleep podcast so you do not miss it. In the meantime, for those of you who are not members of the platform yet, we have a discount code for all our podcast listeners. You can get 15% off all Eat, Burn, Sleep memberships. Just enter the code podcast15 at checkout on the memberships page on eatburnsleep.com. We still have so much more to cover, so please stay tuned.